I am Sparta. Welcome to the 300th episode of the Retirement Answer Man. Welcome to the show. This is the 300th episode. Holy cannoli, that's a long time. My name is Roger Whitney, and I am your host. And if you've never been here before, we're not always this silly. And this is the show dedicated to helping you not just survive retirement. We really want you to rock it. And we believe that you can, and we noodle on how do you do that every week on the show. So welcome to the 300th episode. So we are in the middle of a month-long theme of how do you manage taxes in retirement? And what we've been doing is focusing on identifying the levers that we have. And today, I'm going to introduce you to a new tax called IRMAA. Yes, we're going to meet IRMAA and learn all about her. And then next week, we're going to try to tie all this stuff in together of how do you manage all of these different variables in tax management. But we can't do any of that until we have that all-important disclaimer. Well, if you're new here, make sure you don't take advice from me. I'm not your advisor. I'm just a guy on a podcast who walks life with clients who I do give advice to. And remember, this is helpful hints and education before you make any decisions. Talk to your legal advisor, your tax advisor, or your financial advisor. That's just common sense. Now let's go get a couple tips in the hot topic segment. So I do have a tip for you that I learned actually from a client, which I thought was genius. But before that, I guess the headline is, for those of you that have listened to the show for a while, especially, and myself, is this is episode 300. Think about that for a second. Holy cow. That's on average, these shows are about 30 minutes. So it's 150 hours, which equates to 6.25 days of audio greatness. Well, audio for sure of us noodling on retirement. Surprisingly, it's not that uncommon for me to hear a comment from someone who discovers the show and it resonates with them, for them to go back and listen to hours of the show, almost, starting from episode 1, sort of like, I guess you do a TV series, which really blows my mind. And it shows, we talk about the same things, but we continually evolve how we're thinking about things. And I'll tell you, over the years, interacting with you through your emails and through private conversations, etc., has allowed me to evolve in ways I never imagined I would as an advisor, which is just an amazing thing. So I thought I'd share a couple top 5 or 6 things that I think are highlights from these 300 episodes. I'll do this real quickly, so we'll get on with the show. And if you don't want to hear any of this, go on to practical planning and you can meet IRMAA and we'll continue with the tax management. So when I think back over the last 5 or so years, wow, I've never missed an episode. We did some best ofs last month, and that was the first time I had done that in those 300 episodes. So consistency is definitely important, I think, in building that muscle and actively thinking about things. Just like consistency for you in updating your net worth statement, checking your allocation, making sure you're doing what you need to be doing health-wise. It's all about those habits. And I've definitely built the habit of this show, and it's changed my life. So let's think, a couple things I thought of. One is, over those 4.5 years, it's helped me define and iterate on our agile financial planning process, taking the agile methodology from the software development world and applying it to financial planning, which I think is long overdue. And you've helped in that. In fact, I'm in the middle of writing a book on agile financial planning to outline how we need to evolve the planning industry. And that's come from this show. Another thing that's come from the show that I don't think would have happened otherwise, I know it wouldn't have, is my team. Nicole, Rockstar Mills, Tracy from the RRC, Monkey Dog, our graphic designer, Aaron and Michelle, and everybody at Podcast Fast Track who produces the show. These people mean a lot to me personally. None of that would have happened from the show. So put it out there. You Mr. or Mrs. Listener. You've helped me evolve as an advisor. And I can tell you from 5 years ago, I am at an entirely different level than I was. And I think that's from this beautiful feedback loop of us interacting and thinking critically about all the different things we think about on the show. Because that doesn't happen naturally. And it's hard to have a safe place to do that. And this is definitely a safe place to do that because all of you are awesome. And just like the Rock Retirement Club is another feedback loop where we can have a safe place to have those discussions. I now have friends and listeners literally all over the world, which is amazing. And personally, I know what my purpose is in life. And I'm trying to act it out and move towards it as best I can and as bravely as I can. And that's all come from this show. And it's come a lot from you. So I want to thank you for being part of this show and tuning in every week. It's been an absolute joy in my life. And I hope it has in yours. All right. So I was chatting with a client not so long ago, and they were trying to decide, do I really want to retire? What would I do? And here's what they did. And they explained this to me after the fact. It's like, okay, what I did, Roger, and I'm paraphrasing, obviously, is I made a list of all the things I'd like to do in retirement. And they made clear, this is not a bucket list. This is not, I want to go climb Kilimanjaro and do a marathon and all those other things. No, they made a list of what they want to do on a day-by-day basis. I want to practice my guitar. I want to read books. I want to learn how to play golf. Those mundane type of things. I have all these things I want to do in the backyard. I want to mentor kids. Just the things that you would fill your day with. Because a big struggle when you're institutionalized and you're still working is not really knowing what's in the void or what you're going to fill the void with. So this gentleman came up with a list. He brainstormed, okay, what would those things be that I'd want to do? And then he took a calendar and he mapped out a month or so of what his would look like each week. What would happen on Monday? He'd go have coffee with his friends, and then he'd go to lunch, and then he'd go work out, and then he'd go read. And then on Tuesday, he'd go to golf lessons, or they'd go on a date night, or he would basically map out an ideal schedule fitting in everything that he put on his list. And he did it going out a month or so. And what he realized from that exercise was, man, there's not going to be much of a void to fill. I can't fit it all in, all these things that I want to do. And it gave him a lot of reassurance of, I'm ready for this. I got some exciting things I want to do, from mentoring to working with my hands to reading to activities. I have a lot of things I want to do. And he mapped out basically the first month or so of what retirement, quote unquote, would look like. And it really helped him say, okay, I'm ready. I got enough to do. I got a lot of things I'm passionate about. So I think that's a good thing for you to maybe embrace. Is tip number one is start to make a list of what you want to have in your life, whether it's volunteering or classes or teaching or mentoring or exercising or learning a skill or traveling. Make a list. And it could be as simple, I want to be able to walk the dog every day. You want to have all those little things. So not a big bucket list. Start to make a list of things you would want to have in your life if you had the time. And you may find that if you create that list and map it out like this gentleman did, you're going to have a full life and it's not going to be a void once you come out of the institution. So I thought that was a pretty good tip. I've never heard anybody doing that before. So bravo. Now with that, let's get on to the practical planning and let's meet Irma. So who is Irma anyway? And why is she getting up in my Medicare premiums? So Irma is what we're going to talk about today, which is the potential surcharge that you might experience on your Medicare benefits. So this is another facet that you're going to have to manage when it comes to taxes in retirement. Now, next week, I'm going to remind you, we're going to try to put these things that we've talked about over the last few weeks, plus some other things in, and create a framework for you to decide what you need to focus on and what you're just going to have to deal with because of all the different issues we have to address. So I'm going to try to give you a framework to work through that. But today I want to explain to you how IRMAA might come into your life. So who is IRMAA anyway? Well, back in 2007, they passed a law that put a surcharge on parts of your Medicare benefits if you make over a certain amount. In 2019, that's $85,000 a year if you're a single filer, or $170,000 a year if you're married. So this is a surcharge on top of some of the premiums that you pay for Medicare benefits. Now, you already get Medicare Part A, that comes with it, but Medicare Part B, which you enroll in at age 65, could be affected by IRMAA. She wants to get into that. And then if you elect Part D, which is the prescription coverage, IRMAA could affect that as well, depending on your income streams. And normally these would be deducted from your Social Security benefits. But IRMAA is a little bit like my wife. God bless her. She has a long memory. My wife really does remember things that I say and do long after I remember them. Come to think of it, you know who else does that? Nicole. She has a crazy memory. In fact, when we had our first review, I think I've shared this before, I had her do her own annual review that first year. And one of the big lessons that she said she learned during that first year, she was able to figure out when she should pay attention to me and when she shouldn't, as far as all the things that we talk about. And I thought that was very insightful. That's a great skill to have. But anyway, let's get back to IRMAA. IRMAA has a long memory. So in 2019, if you're receiving Medicare and you're Part B and Part D, IRMAA is going to look at your income for 2017. IRMAA is always looking 2 years in the past to determine whether you're going to have to pay this surcharge. So you can imagine a case when you're 63 years old, you're recently retired, and you're re-nesting in your house, and you want to build a big back patio with a deck and a pool, your oasis to enjoy in your retirement. And you have all this money in tax-deferred accounts that you've worked so hard to grow and build. So you take out $100,000 to pay cash for this oasis, right? Then I've seen it happen. Or it could be a RV, it could be a boat, it could be lots of different things. Well, if you do that when you're 63, and let's say that combined with other income you have, 2 years later, while you're sitting there sipping your pina colada in your oasis in your backyard, you're starting to read about IRMAA and you say, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to pay a surcharge now that I'm 65 on my Part B because of this oasis I built 2 years ago and because of how I took the money out, because it's always going to look 2 years in arrears. I mean, you're still going to enjoy the pina colada. Come on. Who doesn't? But it may be a little sour in your mouth if you realize you're going to have to pay more. And we'll talk about what that is. So IRMAA is going to look at your modified adjusted gross income 2 years in the past. Some good news on this is, oh, wait a second. Before I get to the good news, let me get to the bad news. You always want the bad news first. You ever get asked that? Good news, bad news? Take the bad news first. The bad news is when IRMAA is looking at modified adjusted gross income, it's going to bring back in some things that we normally think are free from federal taxes, sort of like Social Security does, i.e. interest from state and local municipal bonds. So it's going to bring that back in just like last week. Okay, that's the bad news. The good news is that starting January 1, the tax brackets that IRMAA will determine are going to be indexed based on a 12-month CPI change. So they're going to be indexed to inflation. So in 2020, those brackets should go up by approximately 1.7%. And we'll get to the brackets here in a little bit. So the way the brackets work, it's similar to income taxes. They're progressive. So for a married family making under $170,000 a year, or a single person making under $85,000 a year, using that modified adjusted gross income plus the municipal bond interest, you're only going to have to pay the normal Part B premium of $135.50 a month, which is what it is now. But if you make over $170,000 to $214,000 as a married couple, you're going to have an extra $54.10 per month for Part B. And if you take Part D, it's going to be around $12.50 extra per month. And then if you're single, it's $85,000 to $107,000 in income. And then the brackets progress from there on upward. Whereas all the way to the top bracket, that if you make over $750,000 as a married couple, it's an extra $325 per month. And on Part D, it's almost $80 per month extra. So you can see how this can happen. And it's always going to look 2 years in the past. So literally, you could double your payment for Part B if you make over $214,000 as a couple in a year, 2 years prior, or over $107,000. You go from your $135.50 a month premium on Part B and add on pretty much double that. So whatever you're calculating, double it if you're hitting these surcharges. And it's always looking 2 years prior. So you can see how this could balloon up. And is this going to be life-changing? I don't know. It's sure going to be annoying. So it's something that you want to avoid if you're able to. It might be like one of those things where, do I walk across the street to get around this barrier or this mess, or do I just sort of walk towards the side of it and get a little on me, but not worry about it? Back to the number one rule of tax management in general, but definitely in retirement, we don't want to let the tax tail wag the dog, you and your life being the dog in this instance, sorry. So we have to figure out, is this worth going across the street for to try to avoid this surcharge? And that's part of what we're going to try to build a framework for next week. So what do you do? What are some strategies to help you deal with IRMAA? What are some strategies that we have? Well, number one, we sort of hinted on, is we want to be aware of temporary spikes in income. When you take a lot of money out of a tax-deferred account, you're going to want to think, oh, what's this going to do to me 2 years into the future? So let's go back to building the oasis and that $100,000. It may be that rather than take the $100,000 out all at once, you do a home equity line of credit, you do a home improvement loan, and you, with the intent of not wanting any debt, but then you stagger when you take money out so you don't pop yourself up into IRMAA territory unintentionally. So you just want to be a little bit more thoughtful about this. You're going to want to be aware of how required minimum distributions, the gift that keeps on giving when it comes to taxable income, how when you're 70 and a half and you project what your RMDs are going to be, not only is that going to hurt you from a tax perspective in paying taxes on the distributions, but you're also going to have to factor that into how that impacts your IRMAA, which will lead to another potential strategy, which is partial Roth conversions in your mid-50s or in your early 60s to try to minimize those RMDs for later on. And we'll get to this a little bit next week. And this goes to a fundamental concept of tax planning in retirement. And it's something a lot of people aren't used to in their working career because they didn't really have a lot of opportunities, especially in a corporate job. And that is multi-year tax planning. Because making a decision that potentially saves you for today or next year could really hurt you later on from a tax standpoint. So in retirement, when you have ultimate control over how you realize, for the most part, income, you want to do more multi-year planning rather than just looking at a year-by-year basis. The fourth strategy, as soon as you can, start to build some balance to your balance sheet, meaning looking at your mix of after-tax assets, Roth assets, and tax-deferred assets. So you can have some options in how you take money out. So we don't fall into the trap of having all of our liquid money in IRAs or 401ks and having very little flexibility if we need money to live or to pay bills or whatever. So the sooner you can start to balance your balance sheet from a tax perspective, I think the more flexibility you're going to have. Another strategy is funding your health savings account, especially early on, not getting distributions, but keeping all the bills and building up a slush fund for medical expenses. So you have some other tax-free money that you can access potentially in retirement. And the reason you would save your bills is you can always access the money. There's no time limit on when you can get reimbursed. So in retirement, you could get reimbursed on a medical expense from 10 years ago, assuming you were in a health savings qualified account. So funding HSAs just gives you another bucket of money you could go to. And then what happens if you are a little bit beyond these strategies and the horse has already left the barn and you have way too much money in IRAs or pre-tax money And now you're getting close to required minimum distributions where you're going to be forced to start taking money out year after year. Well, one thing you can do if you don't need the money and you are charitably minded, you can do what's called a qualified charitable distribution to help minimize your income. Believe it or not, it's not unusual to have people getting required minimum distributions and they're like, I don't want the money. Stop sending me money. It's killing me in the tax area. Well, if you're in that case and you're charitably inclined, what a qualified charitable distribution allows you to do is, as the IRA owner, you can distribute directly to a qualified charity, a 501c3, up to $100,000 annually directly to the charity. And that will be deemed to satisfy your required minimum distribution, assuming it's not over $100,000, and it will not be included in income. So you get to satisfy your required minimum distribution. You get to give money to a cause you care about, and it can help you avoid some IRMAA charges. And as a kicker, just because you're here playing the game today, it could help you potentially not have your Social Security taxed. So these are qualified charitable distributions. You're allowed up to $100,000 a year. The key is you can't just take the money out and then give it to a charity. I guess you still get the deduction. There's a way of doing it that goes directly from the IRA to the charity of your choice. So everybody knows what's going on. So that's an option for you as well. All right. So there, you've met Irma. What do you think of Irma? You like her? She's a nice lady. Well, I don't know. Anyway, next week, we're going to try to build a framework and start to put these things that we've talked about and some other things together to help you manage taxes in retirement. Let's go get happy with Nicole.
This is Thankful Lab.
What was that?
That was my attempt at a scary, intimidating voice.
For our Sparta-themed...
That's right. 300.
300, that's right. And you informed me I'm supposed to call you Nike for this show, right?
Sure. Yeah. We need Greek names.
Okay. And you're the
What's
goddess
Roger in
of
Greek?
Victory. What'd you say it was?
I suggested Rogeritis, but you said that sounded like a disease.
It did.
So Leonidas, Rogeritis.
Doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Okay, fine.
So since we're focusing on being thankful, I'm going to stick with the Sparta theme. Is one thing that I'm thankful for, Nicole, and I actually shared this with you a few weeks ago. I never felt brave growing up. And I feel like I've really developed that over time. It wasn't something I felt born with. Mm-hmm. Brave in relationships, brave in conversations, just brave in general. And I'm really thankful that I leaned into things that I didn't feel like I was natural at. And I feel like I'm fairly brave now for the most part. You scare me, but other than that, I'm very thankful for that.
Now I feel like you're the serious Hallmark card.
And I think sometimes as we get older, we forget where we came from and the muscles that we've built that we didn't have when we were 20, 30. And I think we should be thankful for how we've progressed. So I'm curious what that would be for you and for others. So think about that and be thankful that you are iterating, you are improving. Yeah, that is a Hallmark card.
It is. That's okay, though.
It's okay.
On your marks, get set.
And we're off to set a 7-day baby step to take a baby step.
Oh, you can't read my pen, can you? It says goal, baby step, better life.
Nicole has created a schematic for how to do an intro. We're off to set a 7-day goal to take a baby step to take an action.
For a better life.
For a better life. Thank you. We will all get this together. And in the next 7 days, let's go to rogerwhitney.com/survey, if you would be so kind, and complete our annual Retirement Answer Man survey. Now, this isn't just any normal survey. It's going to take less than 5 minutes, but it is critical in our work to set the themes for all of 2020. We want to know what you love. We want you to know what you don't like. Hopefully that's not me. We want to know what you would like to see or how you would like us to improve the show so we can make this for you. This is all about you and you not just surviving, but rocking retirement. And your input is valued. So go to rogerwhitney.com/survey and help us out so we can help you.
movie was that? Jerry Maguire? Help me help you.
That was Jerry Maguire. I saw that the other day, actually. You complete me. I'm going to miss Sparta. Do I have to put my sword away? Can I keep my sword by my desk?
Sure.
This is sort of cool. I like this empowering. I want to talk like this all the time. I think I would trash my voice if I did that. So obviously the show is over. We thank you so much for hanging out with us. We're going to
300 episodes.
300. Woo! Yes, amazing. It really is amazing. I am thankful for that.
It's awesome.
I've made so many cool friends from the show, just listeners that I've had coffee with and people I've interacted with that I have a relationship via email because they email via 6 Shot Saturday all the time and we just chat, and I've never met them. And there's no expectation. It's just having good people get together and noodle on things that we all care about. That is pretty cool.
It's really cool.
I'm becoming a Hallmark card again. We need to leave. Have a great day.
Well, you got to balance out the toughness.
That's right. That's right. That's right. To be the complete package. Have a great day, guys.
We appreciate you joining us today for this episode of Retirement Answer Man. Be sure to visit rogerwhitney.com/answers to access the Retirement Answer Library with over 30 checklists to help you make the most of the only life you have. Remember, you have more power than you realize to create an amazing life starting today with Retirement Answer Man. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Have a wonderful day.